All right, we're live. Hey, what's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. We're just getting started here, waiting for people to pop in the live chat. Let me know how I sound, guys. I'm testing a new platform today. It's called StreamYard. It's a fun little platform for interviews. So just want to make sure you guys can hear everything clearly because that's important for today's show. What's up, Darkian, Kafa, DMB Lover? What's up, Firefly, Alejandro? What's going on? What's up, Field, Oregon? What's up? What's up? All right, glad everything sounds good. Just want to welcome everyone to my channel. My name is Stranger. If your first time tuning in today, we're doing a special live stream today. We got a special guest, and for those new to my channel, I do weekly videos on music production, and we're invested in helping you guys succeed and grow in your music careers. And in line with that, we have a special guest today to talk about music PCs. I've been getting a lot of questions recently about what kind of components should you get for your next music PC build, or what kind of computer in general should you get to start making music. Now, I know my way around computers, but I'm not an expert. So I thought I'd pull in our special guest who I'm going to introduce shortly, who will walk us through all the various components that you can get if you're into building your PC. He might even recommend if you're into laptops, we may get into that as well. Comment and let me know, what are you guys on? What system are you guys on? PC or Mac? Also, let me know where you guys are tuned in from. How's the weather where you guys are at? It's a nice day out in Toronto. Sun is out. It's nice and breezy. It's a great day for a little bike ride. I might go for a little ride later. Looks like there's a lot of PCs. We got one Mac. We got two Macs. DC41, Joe Patterson, PC. What's up? All right. So we got a lot of PC people here, which is good, because we will be dedicating a big part of the show today to talk about PCs. So is anyone here looking to build their next music PC? Okay, so Darkin, you're running a 2017 iMac Pro. Excuse me, coughing on my water. Yes, I am in the 416 area. Okay, looking for some people are looking into upgrading. That's great. Building. That's great. Awesome. Kafa, you wish to build this year? Awesome. All right, cool. So, yeah, without further ado, I'm just gonna invite our guest in today, and then we're gonna be talking about some PCs. So, let me just bring in Lori. Hello, Lori.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going, man?
It's going great. How are you?
Awesome. Yeah, doing really well. Yeah, weather's nice today. I'm just happy that we have warm weather again. So, looking forward to getting out there and getting some sun after.
Yeah. I got burned recently here in the UK, which is very rare.
Got to be careful. Got to put on that sunblock.
Exactly.
Yeah. So everyone, I just want to introduce everyone in the audience. This is Lori from Tech Notice. He has an awesome channel on YouTube geared around geared around technology for those interested in content creation. I've been following his channel for about a year now. I was really impressed by his knowledge on all the different types of gear out there, especially towards people that want to get into content creation. And also was really impressed by his camera work. His channel has super high quality and love the quality on his channel. And he's just an awesome host. So Yeah, Lori, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself, your channel? What is your mission so everyone can get to know who you are?
Yeah. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Those who are watching replay. Sorry. If you
Replay.
hear a funny hear a funny accent here, I'm actually originally from Estonia, which is a very, very small country in the northern Europe. There's only 1 million of us in the world, so I'm one in
Only
a
one
million.
million. He's
Woo!
Lori's special. We got a really special guest here today.
I bet you $10 or Canadian bucks that there is nobody from Estonia in the comments below. If there is, please let us know. I'd love to know if there's
Oh
anybody
man,
watching from Estonia. That would be ace.
that would be
But
awesome. Yeah.
I know. So actually, my major is actually in music. I don't know if you knew
Oh
that.
wow, I had no
Yeah.
idea. What a surprise.
Yeah, so that's why I'm also quite a lot into music and things. So I learned jazz vocals and piano in college,
Yeah.
um, before I came to UK. But in the UK, basically, I started a video production company, and very quickly I realized that there is no information about like the equipment, especially PC parts for content creators. If you're doing video, photo editing, like everyone's talking about building PCs for gaming and stuff, but what does it actually mean for like video editing? It's completely different area. The parts are used completely differently. The hardware is completely different. So basically, I've done a lot of testing, research, and things for myself to just help people who want to do it themselves and don't just want to get something from Apple and pay the overpriced, Apple
Yeah.
things, because often you can get much better system depending on your workflow and on your applications you use. You can get much better system in Windows. So that's
Yeah.
why I looked into that, and that's what I'm doing on my channel.
That's awesome. And yeah, I totally agree. Just from experience, being able to select your own parts and build your PC, you end up saving a lot more money compared to buying something that's pre-built like a Macintosh
Oh yeah.
computer. I mean, nothing against Macs. Love those computers as well. But if you want to save money, building a PC is definitely the way to go. And I'm really happy to hear that what you're doing with the channel, because you're right, there isn't a lot of content out there for
No.
content creators that want to learn about what kind of gear or what kind of PC they can build towards their craft. And content creation is such a big industry today, so it's great that you're filling that space.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of the specs even didn't make sense to me. Like seeing like a processor that is X amount of gigahertz, thinking that is better because it's a bigger number, but
Yeah,
turns out that is absolutely nothing. The gigahertz mean nothing. You
interesting.
actually have to look at the different things, which I'm going to talk about when we get into the processes of the PC parts.
I'm excited to hear what you've got. Just for everyone in the channel, I was recently really impressed by a live stream you did recently with so Lori built this dream PC, content creation PC, with like one of the best CPUs out there, and it was all black. I was like, wow, this thing is so sick. Yeah,
Yeah. I'm very jealous of the person who actually got it. So I
yeah,
wish I could keep it, but it wasn't for me, so
yeah.
it was for someone else.
Oh, what a lucky person. Yeah. All right. Should we get right into it?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
And yeah, I think Stranger's gonna actually keep some of the questions or keep an eye on the questions
Yeah.
as
So
well.
I guess before we start, let me top up with that. So
Yeah.
I'll be moderating today's stream. So if you guys have any questions, just type it into the live chat. I'll be selecting any questions that are relevant for Lori, anything related more to music production software. I'm going to try to tackle those, and we'll answer questions that are relevant to the discussion. And then for the last, I guess, 15 minutes of the show, we'll have a free for all in terms of any Q&A that you got. As well,
Mhm.
make sure to check the links in the description. Follow Lori's channel, Tech Notice. I left all his social media links down below. As well, we also have a bunch of links to all the components he'll be referencing today. So if you guys are interested, check that out.
Okay.
Awesome.
Shall I just start firing away?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Sweet.
So hopefully Ginger can put like the different screen on as well so people
Yeah,
can
yeah,
see.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. There we go.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be referencing to the links that are left in the description and kind of making sense of what is there and then why we've chosen these things. But
Yeah.
basically, I wanted to give people an option for their budget. So it's not just that you can just choose this set of products or this set of products, but because of PC building, you have like almost well, not technically unlimited, but very unlimited amount of options which parts to go for, and like a lot of different upgrades, much more than some of the other, you know, system integrators do that. So basically, Stranger said that we have two main softwares that people use for music production: Ableton and FL Studio. And whenever you build a PC for like your content creation workflow software, it's always very good to look at the recommended system requirements of the software, because often they give like little key elements away. What is the most important thing to focus on in the system? For example, looking at here, this is Ableton's recommended system for Windows. As you can see, we can, let me just zoom it a little bit bigger so people can see a little bit better.
Awesome.
So we have Windows 10 over here, and then it says Intel Core i5 or an AMD multi-core processor. Now, this is another thing that sometimes we have to keep an eye on, but not in these two like software cases. But often when you see only Intel or only AMD recommended in the recommendations, then don't go with like the other option like AMD or Intel, because sometimes the software is only being built on a single like processor and it can't work on AMD. Like I know programs that can only work with Intel platform but don't actually perform that well on AMD at all. But in this case we can do that. But as you can see, like i5 or multi-core processor is quite a high end in terms of like Intel Core line, which gives us that the processor is most important thing. There's i3 and then there's Pentium and there's much more things down there, but above it there's only like i7 and i9. So it's quite like in the middle there. So it looks like there's quite a bit of emphasis on the processor on this program, as well as 8 GB of RAM. That's not a lot. That's quite small. Also, you can see the display resolution. That just tells us that there's no really graphics power needed. And then this is just another ACO compatible, like a bit of the software over there. And then looking at the Mac over here, we can see that any of the Mac previous operating systems that before Big Sur, so this is for the new Apple Silicon M1 chip. And then we have Intel Core i5 processor or Apple Silicon using Rosetta. But using Rosetta, what that means is basically it's not built for the Apple Silicon system yet, but Rosetta is translating the like old form of code into the new way, which actually comes in a cost of not all of the plugins are working on the new Mac Mini or Mac M1 chip. Just so you know, 8 GB of RAM, which actually doesn't really work as like linearly or bar to bar as Windows systems. So the new M1 chip with the RAM, it works a little bit differently than the just more, you know, AMD or Intel processors basically. And display is the same processor. So let's have a look at some of the components over there. There are two platforms we can go for. There's AMD or Intel in here, and I'm going to give you two options, but I'm also going to talk to you about like what is the difference between those two options. And please, like stranger, you know, interrupt me if I'm going too fast or something is a little bit you know, confusing. I'll try to slow down a little bit. There's
No
tons of
problem.
information I want to
Yeah.
go through, just
Yeah.
if people like listening to it back or want to like refer back to it, they just have all the information over here. So in the description of the video, we can see like little blue and little red options over here. So the blue option, basically, let me zoom it in a little bit more. This blue is Intel, and then the red is AMD. Basically, because the system doesn't require a lot of graphics power, when going with the Intel processors actually have an integrated graphics card inside the processor, which means that you don't need to purchase an extra like graphics card. Sorry about that. And which is very, very helpful if you just want to get like the best bang for buck, as I like to call on my channel, for your PC and don't want to buy a graphics card right now, because in the world there's like a bit of a graphics card shortage. So if you want a graphics card, you're going to have to pay like 2 or 3 times the MSRP of the graphics card, which right now, if you can, don't buy a graphics card right now. So basically, that's why I'm giving you the Intel option. And if you click on any of those links, basically what happens, I'll just click on one of them so you'll see. It gives you an option where you want it, like either Amazon or B&H. Depending where you are watching from, in the world, this should lead you to your local Amazon, just to make life easier for you. So you know that the parts are compatible and things like that. So if I'm going to press B&H, it's just going to take me to B&H over there. And sometimes it doesn't give you an option, but that doesn't matter. It should take you to the exact same component. So first of all, here looking, this is like what I would recommend, the minimum one, which is Core i5 11600K. And this is one of the latest processors of Intel. Well, it is the latest i5 processor from Intel. And it's quite a powerful processor now. I'd call it quite like the good bang for buck, because it's got integrated graphics, which is very powerful. It's powerful enough to drive like 3 4K monitors. So like if you're not doing any video editing, but you just want the pure, power of the processor, and use just screens to see like your tracks and maybe some other plugins and things in there, this is like perfect. It's like you don't need any more. It's perfect. You just maybe have to keep an eye on when you get the motherboard, because not all motherboard have a lot of outputs of the monitor. So if you need like more than 2 monitors, you might be struggling a little bit on the motherboard IO, or inputs and outputs of the motherboard, when we get to that part. And then the other option is like, you'll see little like arrows in the description as well. And then there is like an upgrade option, like which one do you want to go for? You can click on the next one, and that will take you like the next level up, which is like a little bit more powerful processor. But like in terms of how good is the processor, even if you go with the lowest option of all of them, you should be completely fine in doing like 90% of your production work, and getting like a lot of tracks in there. Like it's very, very powerful. And the reason I'm going with 11th generation of Intel processor, not 10th generation processor, is because they upgraded the graphics in the new version, which is a much better graphics than the previous one. Sorry about that. And then the single core performance of the processor is quite a bit better as well than the last one, which basically just means that all your PC will feel much snappier when the single core performance is good. Now, I want to talk about a little bit of the specs of the processor, because the cores is like very important, as well as what you see gigahertz over here is like a processor speed. So we can see like the lower one, i5, that we have over here has 6 cores and 12 threads. And 6 cores is quite a bit. Let me zoom in so you'll see a little bit more. 6 cores is like quite like mid-range over there. There's a little bit lower as well, but the more cores you have, the more multitasking you can do basically. And the more cores you have, the more powerful the processor is, because it can do multiple things at the same time. Often what you see also is like the processor speed, which is like clock speed and the maximum turbo speed. And it looks like Intel processors are much better, because you don't see any AMD processor that hits over 5 gigahertz. But if you go with the updated or like upgrade version of this Intel processor, you'll see 5 gigahertz in there. But that is not actually the spec that really matters. The gigahertz speed is, it doesn't matter of the speed, because what matters is instructions per clock speed. So basically, the speed of the clock speed means that it takes the processor like a hertz to transfer data, right? And it just measures how fast it can transfer the data. But at the same time, what matters is how much data can it transfer per like transaction or per movement. So if it does it 5 gigahertz, which is like 5,000 times per second, hertz, 1 hertz is, no, actually, sorry, it's 5 million times per second. It does it. Megahertz is 1 million. Gigahertz, no, that's 1 billion, sorry. So 1 hertz is 1 times per second, basically, but it does it that many times. But AMD's latest processors have a better instruction per clock, which means it just transfers data more at the same time. Okay, let's leave it at that. So now, the other option of the processors, what you can do is here, AMD options. And the good options with AMD and why I recommend AMD is that AMD has a very large option of upgrade options because they haven't changed their CPU socket and the platform, which means that there is 4 generations, if not more generations, well, 4 official generations and then some variations of processors that all fit on the same platform. So as you can see, like all the way from this cheapest AMD platform, we can see £140 to all the way to the absolute Beastmaster, processor here. We have exactly the same platform. So you can literally put the slowest one or the highest one in, no problem. Whereas on Intel one, you are a little bit limited to generations and which one do you want to go for. So basically, I like that the upgrade option on AMD just gives you a lot of choice of which options you want to go for. So I've left like a kind of different tiers of processes in the description as well, so you can just have a look and see, okay, do you know what, my budget allows this one or that one, and then you'll keep going. Just one thing to keep in mind on AMD processors is as long as you hit 5000 series processors, so let's see if this one here is the 5000 series. The other option should be this one here. Let's have a look. There we go. So as you can see, this 5000 series, let me zoom in. Boom, 5600X. That 5000 series is like a huge like jump from 3000 series, and you'll see a lot of snappiness over here. And then you can just choose how many cores you want on the processor, 6, 8, 12. AMD offers you more cores, so if you want to do a little bit more multitasking and you like to do like a bit of this and that at the same time, or also video editing at the same time, then AMD processors are like more powerful, really one. Not necessarily the best bang for buck now because they are just better at the doing. They also like to charge you now a little bit of a premium, but Intel may be a little bit more bang for buck. But AMD has a lot of upgrade options over there. So I like that platform. That's why.
I'm glad you brought that up, Lauren, because I've been hearing a lot about AMD, and a couple of years ago I got one of the AMD, I think 3000 series, and I'm still using it today, and it's still very powerful. It can handle a lot of plugins when I'm producing, and seems like a good choice to go if you can spend just that extra little bit. I think maybe it may even, would you say, would it future proof your computer a little longer if you pay that extra bit?
Yeah, I think so. Basically, the 11th gen on Intel is the last generation that will be on this platform. So if you go with any of the 11th gen, you don't have any upgrade options. Like it's gone.
Yeah.
Because the next generation will be on a new platform, so you need a new motherboard, possibly new RAM and other bits, so you can't like reuse some of the things. Whereas AMD's 5000 series is most likely the last as well, but there's a lot of previous generations. If you want to start from lower down, you can do that. But if you can get the 5000 series AMD processor, that will be like huge.
Yeah.
They'll just be better.
Yeah, I've just heard. I've just seen so many videos on the AMD 5000 series, and I just just got my hands on a 5950X recently, and super excited to build a PC off that one. So it's got to be a dream content creation, music production PC. So for anyone that doesn't know, this is the CPU I'm talking about, the Ryzen 9 5950X, which I think is the highest of the 5000 series right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is absolutely unbelievable. Like it's like just a beastmaster of everything. Yeah. It just is so powerful that it really leaves Intel in the dust. It used to be that AMD is like the underdog and like kind of trying to look like Intel, and Intel was like years and years ahead of AMD. Yeah. But recently Intel's like fallen asleep and AMD is absolutely killing, especially with that processor. Yeah, it is linked in the description as well if anybody wants to check that out. It's like the most number of little arrows up. You'll see that will be that one.
Hey, Laurie, do you mind moving your mic just an inch away? I'm noticing it's distorting a little, clipping a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
That's better.
Okay.
Yeah. Great.
Let's go for it.
Okay. Let's see if there's any questions before we proceed. Checking in. I'm not sure if this is a relevant question, but are touch screen laptops for music creation any good? That's a good question. I've never had any experience playing with touch screen, but I would assume it's a little more tactile. The only thing with Ableton, it wasn't really well, depending on the DAW that you're using. And I said the word DAW. It's a running joke here. I don't like using the word DAW. Usually say music production platform. You guys caught me on that one. But yeah, really depends on your DAW. But Ableton was kind of meant or designed for mouse and keyboard. So best thing I could say is go in a shop and try out a touchscreen laptop, see if you like it. But yeah, otherwise, I think a regular laptop is probably best for Ableton or Fruity Loops or even Cubase. Or if you're on Mac, then Logic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, here's another. So I'm going to buy a CPU AMD Ryzen 5 3400G because of GPUs are impossible to buy for now. Is it fine for production and streaming?
And that's an okay processor. I have done a build with that processor on my channel before. It's got quite a good graphics card. It's got the best graphics card that is inside any of the AMD processors for now. But if you're doing production, like music production, you might want to look into 4650G or 4350G. I'll just type them in the comments as well so people can find them.
Yeah.
Where are they? Ryzen, because these I have a little bit of a newer version of the architecture on the processors, and they are processor wise a little bit better, but the GPU is slightly less powerful in terms of that. But yeah, I think you should be fine, but the actual CPU power is quite low on that one. It's like a 4-core one, so you'll most likely be like running into the bottleneck when you're starting to have a lot of tracks or doing a lot of things at the same time.
So we got another question here. What do you think about the Ryzen 3700X with a B550M HDV? I don't know what that last component is.
That's motherboard over there.
Oh,
it's
okay.
very good. The motherboard is probably a little bit of cheaper side, but if that fits all of your features, what you want from a motherboard, all the AI IO of the motherboard or all the connectivity features, absolutely go for it. It sounds good.
All right, sweet. Okay, well, let's carry on with the content.
Yeah, 4750G. So next off, I just want to underline like the CPUs as well. So if you go with the Intel CPUs, you don't need a GPU right now. So there was a person, wanting to get a Ryzen 3400G. You might want to look into like the Intel option as well in the description, just because you get a very good processor and iGPU in there as well. But you are right in thinking that if he goes with the Ryzen like system over there, like that 3400G, you can go with the Ryzen platform, and later on when the graphics card will be available, you literally just put a faster CPU in there and a faster GPU, and boom, you've got an absolutely beast of a system. The only thing I'd just recommend, little tip over there, is try to get as fast of a RAM as possible for that Ryzen CPU, because the RAM is going to be shared with the system memory as well as the graphics memory. So the faster the RAM is, the faster your graphics card basically is. So try to get like 3200 megahertz CL16 or 3600 megahertz CL16, which is a little bit hard to find, but that will make your processor faster as well.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
So next off is the CPU cooler. Now, in order to keep your CPU cool, you need, just that. Basically, what happens if your CPU isn't cool is you get throttling, which basically means the CPUs in recent years are so smart that if it gets hotter, it just starts to downclock itself and just, speeds it down in order to run it on lower power and cool it down, which just you'll start to see lagging and things like that. So if this is like one of the first bottlenecks that you can have in the system, is if you have a bad cooling, like your whole system suddenly is slow because it's not cooled down. So also check the temperatures you're in, or like your local temperatures. Usually here in the UK, like most of the time in the year, it's not very hot. So like even like that will cool your CPU down. But if you are in, I don't know, somewhere in the US, in like Texas or something like that, and maybe you don't have an aircon and it's absolutely boiling, you might want to look into a bit of a better cooling for your CPU, because it'll just help your whole system to run a bit more smoother.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll show you like a few of the CPU cooler options over here now. So on the lower one, there's two options over here. My favorite one is the first one over here, which is a Noctua NSU12S. It only costs here like £42 here in the UK. I think in the US or in Canada, depending where you're watching this from, they should be around $40 or so. Just check out the latest pricing in the description below. But Noctua is like, I would call it the best air coolers that are out there. They're quite affordable, and like their performance is just on par. Like it's just the best what they have over there. And this is like one of the newest, most affordable option over there. And this will like cool like your CPUs down very much. So like which processors should you go with this cooler? Or which processors would you recommend with that cooler? So if we are looking down here as the CPU, I would say that if you go in with i5 or i7, this CPU cooler will be fine for you. If you go in with Ryzen 3 or Ryzen 5 or Ryzen 7, this CPU cooler will be fine for you. Just to mention over here, some of the Ryzen 7 processors, especially the 3000 series Ryzen processors, already come with the cooler, and it's quite an adequate cooler in the box. So you might not actually even need the cooler. But none of the Intel processors really come with a cooler, so that's like another price thing to think into your budget, because for Intel processor you do need an actual cooler as well. So this is like one of the lowest one. This is air cooled, and it might be a little bit it's quite quiet actually as well, this one. The other option over here is as well, if you really want to save some money, is a little bit cheaper option. Oh, I clicked on the wrong thing. Here, CPU cooler. So the other option over here is a Cooler Master Hybrid 212 Evo, which is like very well known and most used probably cooler in there. It's quite an okay cooler for like very, very budget option. Your CPU do fine. If you really want to save like any dollar or every dollar you can, just go with this one and you'll be fine. But if you're thinking about like Ryzen 7 and above, like Ryzen 9, maybe Intel i7 or i9, then I would recommend upping for a little bit of a better cooler, just because it will be a little bit quieter for you later on. And then the CPU cooler, you'll see like a few upgrade options over here as well. So the next upgrade option, there is air coolers as well as AIOs, which are basically called like 2-in-1 coolers. And you'll see like a few of them here listed below. If you're clicking from them in the US, it should leave you straight to the link. But the one I was thinking is it's Arctic Freezer to 240 millimeter. There you go. This one over here, and this little cooler will basically keep your PC much quieter, because it's got a little pump inside. It's like a water coolant. There's the radiator and water inside. It just cools the PC down a little bit better. So if you're in a studio and you want like the most quietest option out there, it might be some of the AIO there, but you also need to tune the pump speed in order to get the pump speed like low when it doesn't make sense, or it doesn't make much noise, because sometimes the pumps can also make quite a bit noise, even more than the air cooler, if you want to go for that. The other little downside when going with air cooler or the AIO is that the AIOs might need a little bit of like servicing or keeping an eye on that they're working properly, because if something breaks inside there, you don't see that it's broken. If an air cooler breaks, you're like, oh, the fan's not working. Well, it's obviously not working. But if your PC starts to overheat and you're like, what's happening? Why is a CPU overheating? It could be because the pump on the AIO is broken.
So it sounds like if you want something that's a little more quiet and maybe even a little more streamlined in terms of the look, it seems like the air coolers, the water cooler is the way to go.
Yeah, if like that is very, very important for you, because you'll see like on the little arrows over here, I've got some even more beefier water coolers over there. And then what that means is basically you can keep the bump speed very low, and it just keeps the water going through, and it's very, very quiet. Like, I wish I could show you. I've got a PC down there which has a like an AIO on, and it's just very, very quiet because even though it's got Ryzen 9 on it, it's very powerful processing power, and even at like absolutely maxing out the CPU, it's still very quiet just because it's that. Whereas air cooler would just fan up the air in there, and it might be a little bit louder.
So with the water coolers, I've seen some with like a one fan. The one you showed has 2 fans, and I've seen one with 3 fans. Is it, if it has 3 fans, it doesn't have to work as hard, and is that why it's quieter?
Pretty much. So it doesn't matter how many fans it has, it's still got like a pump on it that's the same size. The pump is always the same, basically. So this model over here, as you can see, there's 120, 240, 280, 360, and 420 versions over here. See, this has 3 fans, 2 fans. Basically the number next to it over here, 120, 240, 280, 360, it means the size of the radiator. The bigger the radiator size, the more it's got cooling capability, because it's got more little like micro fins and more like area to cool down the water that's inside that goes through the radiator. If you're into tuning cars, then you know that as well. If you want to put a bigger turbo in, you need to put a better cooler for your turbo, because the stock one isn't quite kicking it, and you need to cool it down and things like that. So this is what the numbers mean. But make sure that your case also supports that. The ones that I have suggested over there, you'll see when we get to the case parts as well. Check that your case can support certain ones, because this 420, for example, it's a massive radiator. I can show you over here how big the box is. Like, this is absolutely huge. This is the area of the radiator over here, and not all PC cases fit that.
That's humongous.
It's absolute big chungus.
Yeah. All right.
So moving on to next of all is motherboard. When choosing the motherboards, wait a second. I think I just remembered that I've made a little thing. I'll send strangers some links over here, because all the things over here are only Intel motherboards, not AMD motherboards. I forgot to add AMD motherboards in there. And basically there's when choosing a motherboard, motherboards have an overclocking feature or non-overclocking feature, and sometimes having an overclockable feature or overclock feature on the motherboard, this gives you a better like more expensive price, basically. So I'll go for this one here. Let me get a few motherboards out. This one, and then let's get this one as well. So this is like the lowest one of the Intel motherboards I would recommend, which has 4 RAM slots. You've got like your CPU power over there, and you can see like your IO. See, this motherboard over here has 3 slots of graphics monitors. You have 2 HDMI ports and 1 display port, which means you can connect 3 monitors on it if you wanted to. And look, it's quite affordable at $109. It's like the budget one I'd go for. It has all the features you really need, and you don't need to overclock your motherboard. Like, if you're thinking about overclocking your motherboard, just don't do it. If you want to know why, I've got a whole video explaining this on my channel, where I went into it and tried to overclock motherboard like a CPU as far as you can, and see what's the difference and what are the cons. You'll see it there. But this motherboard over here doesn't have that feature, B560M. Now, the next option up over here is a beautiful motherboard over here that is called Gigabyte Vision D Z590, and this is a little bit higher end over here, actually this is the highest end one over here. Let me go to the mid tier over there, so you'll see like what changes when you go motherboard up. So often like you'll see like the looks of the motherboard change a little bit, and it looks like, whoa, a little bit better. But basically what this has is a little bit better cooler on all of the components. Like your VRAM, where the power delivery goes through, is cooled a little bit better, because the cooler it is, the better the processor and everything your system runs. And there's a cooler over here for your storage system, so the M.2 SSD will go in here, and on the lower ones over here you've got a few options as well as giving like a few options of SSD storage. The higher end motherboards give you like more slots on the motherboard. So for example, if you look at the lowest one over here, you can see that only the top slot of the M.2 has a heatsink over, but the second slot here doesn't have it. So basically, if you want a low if you put a SSD on the second slot, it might be thermal throttling, because the hotter the SSD gets, the slower it runs. It's like with everything in there. But this one over here now has much more of those SSD slots. And let's have a look at the I/O. Like, what do we have over here? We have much more USB ports. We have better transfer speeds if you want to get like really fast USB transfer speeds. And this one over here has only two what do you call it, monitor connectors. This is a display port in, and this over here, display port in. Okay, so it's only one actually, not two, because this one is probably for Thunderbolt port, because this is a port in, so this is that. So only one monitor can be connected with this one. If you want to have if you're not going to have a graphics card, you only have one option for a monitor. But basically, you'll get like a few more other features that come with it. Also, when going with the Z5, no, actually, never mind. That's not what I meant. So that basically, then the highest tier over here this is quite like now in the expensive side of the motherboard, but this is like as good as a motherboard can get, with like giving you all the features you really want. You have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth in. As you can see over here, we don't have that on this mid tier, and I think even the lower tier doesn't have that, because if you want Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built in, you'll have to buy an extra card. But this highest end one now has everything built in. First of all, motherboard looks super slick, super nice, which I like that. Make sure that your motherboard always has 4 slots of RAM as well, because that just gives you a little bit of upgradability. You have nice cooler over here. And then when we look at the I/O over here, this is where this motherboard really, really shines and gives you something extra. So basically, these two are antennas for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. And then we have display in, which is actually for Thunderbolt. So if you want to power like a Thunderbolt monitor, like from LG or even Apple, actually, you can power these through these USB-C ports, which are actually Thunderbolt 3 ports. So it's very, very high speed connector. Or also sometimes if you have an audio interface which requires Thunderbolt, then you can have this over here as well. But another thing to look like out for this motherboard is there is only one HDMI port for only one monitor. If you want to run more monitors, you're gonna have to get like a dock for the Thunderbolt over here to get more of that.
Lauren,
Sorry, more display.
There's this quick question about fixing ground loops. I'm not sure, is that relevant to the motherboard?
Kind of. Sometimes you can get a little ground loop on the motherboard depending on like what things you connect to it. But basically, like every component in the motherboard tries to ground down to the power supply of the motherboard. But if you do have a ground loop, it can be like quite difficult to troubleshoot like what is causing the ground loop, because the ground loop can actually be like your audio interface and not even the PC. But it then gets through like some of the cables. Sometimes you'll get a little interference with like your cables are on power cables, like the data cables are on the power cables. So basically there's a magnetic field created. So that's what can happen. Different lights, so sometimes even neon lights. Like I know that our like sound system sometimes feeds back because we have neon lights on. And the neon lights works on different frequencies, so you get that ground loop. But on the ground loop on the motherboard, basically to kind of nip that down.
Okay.
And there is little USB connectors that help you ground that down and have like a ground it down. So have a look at those online if you want to do that. If you know, there's a fellow creator from Canada called Gerald Undone, and he has a video about that where he tried to fix some of the motherboards with that ground loop. But the actual problem in the end was like something different somewhere. So just have a look at that.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. Now moving on to these motherboards. I'll put like a little thing over here. Oh, you can't see a thing. So there we go. These motherboards here are actually for Intel system. So all of these will go Intel. And just if you didn't know, you can't mix Intel and AMD motherboards because the actual socket of it is different. One of the processor has pins on, and one of the processor has just like connectors on, and the pins are on the motherboard. They're completely different, so you can't mix and match them. But the rest of the components can be mixed and matched. So if you see like blue and red options available, then you know that only blue option can go with blue, and then only red can go with red. But if it doesn't have any options, you can mix and match them.
Yeah, and we'll update the list with some AMD motherboards later as well.
I'll put it there. Yeah. So the next stuff is RAM. RAM is very important in order to, if you want to do a lot of multitasking, and also the speed of the RAM, not just the capacity of the RAM, but the speed of the RAM, because you can have a lot of gigabytes of RAM, but if the RAM runs slow, your whole computer is slow, especially if you're using one of the Intel processors without the graphics card, like I mentioned before on one of the questions. Use a fast RAM. So I'll show you some options over here for the RAM. So the lowest budget option of the RAM, what I'd recommend is 16 gigabytes of basically RAM over here. It's quite affordable. I know you see it in pounds over here, but actually if you click on the link, it should take you to like your Canadian Amazon or Amazon US, and you'll see it in dollars. This is very, very affordable RAM and very good quality. You want to get good quality, not sometimes like unbranded or random brand RAM, because RAM can make your whole system run dodgy as well. I have actually used this RAM. It's fantastic. Anything from Team Group is awesome RAM, and Corsair and Crucial. You'll see that in a moment. These are awesome RAM. But 16 gigabytes, 2 times 8 gigs will give you like a baseline of things. I wouldn't recommend getting below 16 gigabytes because even 16 gigabytes will run out very, very fast in these days, especially if you're doing more than one thing at once. So if you have like your browser and your FL Studio open at the same time, or Ableton, you'll need that. But this is, if you do want to get started, it's completely fine. And as you can see, this RAM, okay, this is not really mentioned on here, but from this product code, I can see that this is 3200 megahertz RAM and CL16 over here, CL16 and 3200 megahertz. Basically, this is a very good speed for your RAM, and for the money you pay and for the speed you're going to get. This is like a very, very good sweet spot of the RAM. I know you can get like really fancy and get RGB on the RAM and stuff, but you're going to start to pay a lot of premium very quickly on getting any lighting on your RAM, but it does give you literally zero performance, and I'm all about getting you the best performance for your money. So that's what RAM I would go for. So next up of what I would do is also give you an option of not just more capacity, but also faster RAM. Also the previous RAM, you can also later on upgrade the RAM and get 32 gigabytes if you buy exactly the same like kit again, and then just literally add them on later whenever you have more money. And this is what you can do, like, of all of those kits. So when you buy RAM, make sure that you purchase 2 sticks, not 4 sticks, and occupy all of them. Just, it gives you a little option to upgrade later and get like double the capacity you run right now. If you run out of RAM and you want to save a bit of money, just get 2 sticks of half of the capacity you maybe want to upgrade later on, then you can do that. Don't really mix like different capacities. So for example, getting 2 8 gigabyte sticks and 2 16 gigabytes of sticks, because you might not actually work very well, because you've got 2 channels and it can default to the lowest like capacity, and you might actually just lose like half of the size or capacity of the RAM that you have of the 16 gigabytes, because it can only read like 8 from both channels, if that makes sense. So next of all, like the next upgrade up, we have 3600 megahertz. As you can see, it's faster. We still have CL16 in order to keep like all of the timings the same. You sometimes have 3600 megahertz, but CL18. So the latency also, or CL, also matters when you're looking at the RAM. I try to like, sorry, a little like a rule. I'll try to stay with CL16 because that's like a good latency, and then try to get the speed as fast as you can. 3600 megahertz is like a sweet spot, whether you're running Intel or AMD, especially AMD processors. They like to run like faster because of the faster RAM as well. And if you have an iGPU like Intel, the 11th gen, i7 or i9, the faster RAM will make your graphics card work faster. So I'd recommend that. So this is a really good RAM option over here.
Didn't want to interrupt, but did you want to get some water? I can take over for a couple minutes if. Yeah. Why don't I just look for some questions? So we have a question here, Danny Fortlower. 32 or 64 gigs of RAM, is it important for music production? I think from what I understand, it gets to a point where it starts to scale down in terms of performance. I think 32. So for example, the PC I have, which I've been using for a couple of years now, has 32 gigs of RAM, and it's been more than enough for me. So what would you say about that, Larry?
I'd say that it depends how complex you want to get your projects. Like the more tracks you have in your project and the more plugins you're going to run, the more RAM the program likes to use.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to start to really produce some like music for or like score for video, a film, for example, then you're going to have like hundreds and hundreds of tracks, and then you're going to see that RAM run out quite fast. So that's for that. Also, if you want to do some other things at the same time, for example, while you're on like doing some music, you want to do a little bit of photo editing, video editing, then that requires lots of different RAM.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. And as for today's music producer, we are doing almost multiple things at the same time now, whether it's creating a promo video or creating some graphic arts while you're in the middle of making some music. So that's a good point. So I guess if you can afford it, then the more RAM, the better. I think minimum, would you say was 16?
Yeah, that is an absolute minimum.
Okay.
If you want to put yourself in the safe one and you like to use more than one program at the same time, then I'd recommend 32.
Okay, so 32 is the way to go, guys. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, just before we jump to the next topic, I was wondering, is there any chance we can pull up some motherboards for the AMD processors, just in case anyone here is looking for the AMDs? We can just point you to a couple that Lori can recommend.
Yeah, I'll pull some up right now.
Yeah. While you look, I'm gonna bring up another question. So my main issue is working on a single laptop from simultaneous streaming audio production. The CPU hates me. Is it worth upgrading the CPU? That's a good question.
Upgrading the CPU on a laptop? Is that what it's saying? You can't really upgrade CPUs on a laptop, unfortunately.
Okay.
If that's the question.
Yeah. Oh, well, how about this? If they were on a desktop and they're having problems with their CPU, and they're trying to multitask, like streaming and audio production, is it a CPU issue or is it a RAM issue?
So are they streaming video or are they streaming audio?
I think today it is video, because a lot of people are like DJing or doing production streams on Twitch. Yeah.
So often the streaming gets down to the CPU or GPU. So if you want to do really streaming at the same time, I recommend you getting one of NVIDIA graphics card, because NVIDIA graphics card have something inside the graphics card called NVENC video encoding, which basically takes all the like streaming power off the CPU, so you'll have like, you can easily just work on your project, and then your GPU literally just streams and puts it all over there. Whoa, what was going on there? So you can do that. That would really help you.
Yeah,
so if
that's
you
a great advice. Yeah.
And I would definitely use NVIDIA graphics cards for any of the streaming, because they're just, the encoder is much better on those.
All right.
Okay.
Tom Hayes, I don't know the answer to this question particularly. I recommend maybe trying the different ports on your computer. There may be perhaps there may be some conflicts with some other devices causing the pops and clicks. Also, another thing is, I know if depending on your audio interface, there may be a buffer parameter. You may have to increase the buffer to remove the pops and clicks.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I'll just quickly go through the AMD motherboards, if that's okay. I've got
let's
them
do it.
pulled up over here.
Okay.
So some of the AMD motherboards that I have over here, I'll link those below as well, is basically we're going with the B550 motherboards, because anything below that won't give you, it kind of cripples your upgrade path. And I think like upgrade path, when you're going with PCs, like one of the main things, because you want to upgrade like in the like future, and you want to do that. So upgrade like in the PC is like one of the main things. One of the main things is to upgrade your PC. So basically B550, this one over here, gives us PCI 4.0 SSD speed, which basically means like the fastest PCI speeds that are possible over there. You can see this motherboard, it looks quite fancy, but it's got quite a bit of features, and it's not that expensive. As you can see, it's only like £10 or $10. We'll link it later on in the description as well. Only $10 more expensive than the Intel equivalent, but it has like a lot of good features. You can see all the cooling. It's got RAM slots. You can see display ports and HDMI, so 2 ports for your processor. But in order to get the processor working, you have to go with an AMD APU, which basically means CPU and GPU combined together. It's an APU, all-in-one processor, basically. So it has an iGPU or integrated GPU inside the processor as well. The ones that are mentioned in the comments earlier, if someone can find that comment, that one also has those integrated graphics in there. Whoa, drinking water gives me bubbles. And then so that's what you have to go for. Or the person who asked the question before that had the 3400G processor, that also has graphics card in, so you can have 2 monitors here, as you can see. And then the rest of the like really fast USB ports and things like that, like budget motherboard, like absolutely amazing. Next off, like little upgrade that will get like extra 50 quid, dollars or bucks, wherever you are. This motherboard gives you, like, I think this is what I would call the best bang for buck in all ways motherboard, basically, because it just gives you like all the features I think 99% people want. There is 4 storage options of M.2 SSDs if you want to upgrade that. You've got a lot of SATA ports if you want hard drives or other SATA SSDs to include there. You've got a case USB-C port. You've got 4 RAM slots. And then looking at the I/O of the device, look at that. We have a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built in. We've got super fast USB ports over here. Obviously, all the audio connectors and all that sort of jazz. We only have 1 HDMI port. So that's like one of the downsides if you're running an APU on this one. But most likely, you're going to get a GPU when you get on this part of the build, but this is what I would go for. And then another option over here is this Gigabyte Vision DP, which is basically an AMD equivalent to what I just showed you on the Intel side. You'll see the design is very similar and things like that. And it has Thunderbolt ports as well, which is very hard to get on AMD version. I don't know why it's so fuzzy over here, but you'll get that on this motherboard as well. So this is like another awesome option of the motherboard that gives you like a lot of features, but you're paying quite a bit extra for those Thunderbolt ports if those are really important for you, or if you need those stocks. These are the ones over there. Okay. Shall we move on just to
Yeah.
not keep?
So
Yeah.
I do know you have to end off soon. So yeah, it's up to you. Whatever we can cover. If we can't cover it all, we will just let people know to refer to the list in the description if you need more information on the other
Yeah.
parts. But we'll
I think I'll just skim through a little bit faster on these other ones because these matter a little bit less and we can go through a little bit faster.
Yeah,
But
it's all up to you.
yeah, go for it. I just think like people will find value in it, and whoever's going to refer back to it, I don't want to leave them like hanging on something.
Yeah.
And I want them to have like the complete case, like how it works. So basically, the next option is storage, and storage is something that I would recommend go 3-way storage. So if you can work towards having a 3 SSD or 3 different, what do you call it? 3 different way of storage. So you're storing your OS operating system and programs on the first drive, and that should be the fastest drive possible because you don't want your programs to be crippled because like it's running on an HDD or like a slower SSD. Like get the fastest drive possible for the storage. You'll see some of the storage options over here and optional storage, as you can see as well. So optional storage is for like your archive if you want to add another SSD for like some of the cache drives, or like an archive for all like completely projects or things that you don't actually need to use, just move them off somewhere else so they're stored somewhere over there. But these storage options over here, what I have is like 3 different sizes and speeds of SSDs for your system. You just choose which one you want to get and how much you can afford in terms of the capacity. They all go in like different speeds as well as different capacities. So you can get like a faster speeds one on the lowest end one over here, but then maybe get a lower capacity. So maybe 500 gigabytes instead of 1 terabyte for your OS system if you want that. But it's just all up to you, and the more you get, that's that. So what like ideal workflow I would get, like I mentioned before, is OS drive on like a 1 terabyte super fast PCIe M.2 PCIe 4.0 M.2 and then you'd have like your project drive where you would put all the like music files, for example, all the recordings of like your current project of, you know, maybe vocals, drums, and all that recordings you put on that drive, and then you work like on that. So all the temporary like bigger files go on the project drive, and then another drive for like your media cache files. So in there you would load all like your samples, all your effects or whatever plugins that constantly get used but aren't on the same SSD as the operating system. You'll see that like if you Google the like Ableton and FL Studio, they'll recommend you do that as well, because that will just speed up the program because it can read them from different places and it will just be faster. And then that's like the 3 that you would have, and then optionally you can have the 4th one as like an archive. Just, you know, once you're done with the thing, just drop it over there. So that's the storage, and you can follow them in the description below.
So in your recommendations, would all 3 be SSD drives?
Yes, but you can get them like different sizes and different capacities. For example, the media cache, for example, you can go with a SATA SSD, which is this one over here, I think. No. Let me see if I have this one. Yes, these ones. So you'll see like a little SSD. This is 1 terabyte in size, but you can get it like half the gigabytes as well. But also always like refer to the price you pay as well, because sometimes the most bang for buck, like the more gigabytes there is, the actual price per gigabyte will be less if you go 1 terabyte. So have a look at this. 1 terabyte is 94, but half of that is 57. So do you know what I mean? Like if you double
you
that,
save more. If you buy
save more
yeah.
when you go more. Just like keep a note of that. But like on your libraries, for example, I would just put on something like that. It's 512 gigabytes. That should like fit 99% of the people's libraries in there, and plenty of space, and that like only $50 or something like that. Not bad option, I think, what I do. And then the only bit that you can leave on hard drive I would leave is the archive. The only like the what you're working on, all of those have SSDs if possible, because it's just will be faster.
Yeah.
So now this GPU option over here, this GPU option, there's a few options over here. And if you are purely doing music production, basically just get any GPU can, as low as you can, as cheap as you can. It doesn't matter, because you're just running the monitors. That doesn't take any graphics power at all. Just make sure that the graphics, if you want to run 4K monitors, you can run 4K monitors on the graphics card. You easily see that on the specs of a graphics card. So just get the cheapest one if you want to save money. If you're doing other things, and if you're a little bit like I do all things, and I like a bit of gaming, bit of video editing, here's like a few options I'd recommend you to go for. Depends like what you do and things like that. Graphics cards, the higher you go, the less you get for your money. So basically the performance for your money gets smaller and smaller the higher you get, usually, especially seen on the graphics cards. So for example, the very highest end one and then the mid-range graphics cards only might have like a 20% difference in terms of the performance in the absolute utilization of video editing. For example, gaming, yeah, there might be a little bit more difference, but we're not talking about that in a moment. Nextly, quickly, I want to mention power supplies, because this is like very, very important as well. Getting a good quality power supply can save your bacon. Like, I can't stress that enough. Last PC build we did, I went through 4 different power supplies because there was just issues and issues and issues. I couldn't get it working, and the 4th one finally got it working. So getting a good power supply so all of these, what I'm recommending, check out the manufacturer's make that you have over here and just go with these, because this will save you later. Also, power supplies you don't want to cheap out on, because this power supply you can take with you like forever, pretty much. Like, some of the power supplies manufacturers give you 12-year manufacturing warranty.
Wow.
Like, no one in the world gives you warranty for any other product for 12 years. It's ridiculous. But like, imagine getting it's just amazing. So going for these, if you go in with like very, very budget option and like very low end and off the parts list. By the way, if anyone's wondering like how much does it cost, like all the lowest end of the parts that I mentioned over there, I put the like all the links in the basket yesterday in the US, and I think between 800 or even lower to £1,000. The prices fluctuate like almost like hourly these days. You should be getting that one. That's like the budget option over there. So the budget option of the power supply, this is a very good power supply. This looks very expensive here in the UK right now, but it should be a little bit cheaper actually. But this will like run you most of the things. Even if you get a very powerful graphics card, and in the future to come, this will run you a long way. Next of all, like, I would upgrade. If you get like quite a beefy graphics card, I would upgrade to 850 watt. You'll see that in the description as well. And then if you go like the ultimate best, ridiculous amounts, then I would go with the 1,000 watts, and that should be like more than enough for like most people. What they do, they don't need really more than 1,000 watts. Also, I'm not going to go into that too much, but power supplies have a rating of efficiency rating. So basically, the better the efficiency rating over here, as you can see, this is 80 plus gold. That is quite good. So which means that it runs over 80% efficiency, like at most of the workflow. So however much you're using the PC, you get 80 plus efficiency, which is just very good. The more efficient it is, eventually it's going to like show you on your electricity bills. The more efficient it is, the less you pay for it. And especially if you keep it for 12 years, and a better efficiency power supply might pay for itself in 12 years if you pay a little bit more for it right now. So 80 plus gold is like very good. It goes from like bronze, silver, gold, but I wouldn't go anything less than gold. Try to get that gold. And then there's titanium, which is like almost 90% efficiency, but that doesn't matter too much. If you get 80 plus, that's what you get. Next of all is the case. There's a few options of cases over here, and I'm not going to go too much through like what there are. The lower end ones are still good quality cases, but when you go with the lower end ones, they're maybe a little bit smaller. So if you do want to get like a really beefy graphics card in there, or some of the CPU coolers that we mentioned earlier, they're massive, then they might not fit in there. You can easily see like how much of the CPU cooler is recommended or can fit with a case. So just check that out. And just all of these different tiers, what you can see of the case, they're basically getting a little bit bigger. You get a bit more for you, maybe looking a little bit better. but you get a little bit better performance as well. So in terms of the case performance, what that means is the better the airflow is from the case, the better the performance of the case, because some cases are really, really like just solid and like there's no airflow. For example, if you know NZXT cases, if you've seen them, probably if you've seen a PC, you've seen someone use NZXT case. Very popular, very minimalistic, nice looking cases. I like the design, but in terms of performance, they're not actually very good. It's like right down the lowest like performance of the airflow actually what's out there. So I'd really stay away. If you really want a good performance of the case, stay away from them. Make sure that the front of the case where you can like the air goes in, there's like a mesh and you can see the air go in, and then later on you can upgrade fans and things like that. That's out there, and that really covers the PC parts, and you can like configure them and figure out which one you want, how much you want to spend there, figure out all the motherboards and things like that. The other option, just quickly mention like Apple option, because some people really like Apple and they really like to go with Apple. There is a really, really good option to go with Apple, which is like, if you click on this one, it should take you to Apple Mac Mini M1, which is the base model of a Mac Mini. And I had this one in the studio, and it's like, it's super fast. You can see a lot of people test this online for music production as well. And it's got a lot of power. Depends if you work with Logic as well. I mean, especially if you work with Logic, it's very, very powerful. It's got some downsides. The downsides is obviously upgradability. It can be quite budget over there. And the other downside is all the plugins, not all of them, some of them might not work, especially in Ableton and FL Studio. So if you're using a lot of plugins, you might be struggling with this until they update their software and it's finally working with the M1 chip. But this is super quiet, super fast in terms of like what it can do. The other thing I'd like to mention on the Apple thing is, as you can see, the 8 gigabytes of RAM, it works a little bit differently than on Windows. When this M1 chip basically runs out of memory on the 8 gigabytes, what it starts to do, it starts to use the SSD as a RAM. RAM is basically random access memory, which is just a temporary like files that need to store in a very fast space in order to read them. So once that 8 gigabytes is full, it starts to use the SSD of the RAM, which basically just lowers the SSD longevity. Man, I can't say that word now.
Longevity.
Yes.
Yes.
Longevity. Of this, because SSD has only certain amount of like data that you can write on it. So there's big issues in that when going with Apple. So basically, if you want something temporarily and you're not doing too much like hardcore multi-editing, 8 gigabytes is fine. And the difference between the speed of 8 and 16, you won't really notice the speed of 8 and 16. But if you want your it's Mac. If you want your Mac to last longer time, go with 16 gigabytes, because then your SSD will last longer as well. That's what I want to go for. This is like super cheap as well. If you go for Amazon, you can save $50 instead of going with Apple, because it's a little bit cheaper on Amazon. And the same thing over here is like an upgrade option. That's what I mentioned there. It should be 16 gigabytes Mac Mini. So that's where it shows you. Also the portable option, because Stranger said you might want to get like something portable to do that. The same thing. Go with the Apple M1 MacBook Air or MacBook Pro. The difference in performance is negligible. You don't see the performance difference. You only see the battery capacity, the performance difference in the MacBook Pro. MacBook Pro can last almost double the time as the MacBook Air, I think. Don't quote me on that, but it has a much bigger battery and it can last like 20 hours plus easily on that. So that's what the difference is. And then this same 8 gigabytes, 16 gigabytes kind of thing work, or apply to that, as well as the issues of plugins. That's that. Yeah. But I wouldn't really go for any of the Windows laptops unless you really, really need to, because the Apple, believe it or not, those Apple MacBook Air and the MacBook Pro, like especially MacBook Air, you can get that for like $950. You won't get a better performing laptop like anywhere. Like that performs better than some of the Mac Pros that cost like 10 grand from Apple previously. So any of the Intel laptops from Apple, like that little MacBook Air will absolutely wipe it easily with no sweating and completely quietly. There's no fans in the MacBook Air, just so you know as well. It will run dead silently. Whew. So that's
Wow.
that's tons of information for people. Hopefully that will be useful.
Yeah, that was great, Lori, and I think that was very in depth. You gave a great summary of all the different components and different choices that we can go, whether you want to go AMD or Intel. Guys, remember to check the links in the description. There's different budget options, starting from the more economical, or if you want to spend a little more, then check those links with the arrows. There's 2 upgrade options if you want higher performance as well. I'm glad you brought up the portability. A lot of producers today want to be portable. You guys want to make music on the beach or at the cafe, so having a portable music computer is really convenient. And as Lori was saying, the MacBooks or the MacBook Airs is the way to go. Just remember that if you're getting the MacBook, there's 2 choices. There's the M1 chip or the Intel chip. Some of the plugins are not working with the M1 chip yet. So if you need everything to be functional, you get the one with the Intel. But if you want your laptop to last longer and you don't mind some plugins not working, then go with the M1.
Just I think it's important to notice that the plugins working not working is temporarily. Eventually, Ableton and FL Studio will get it working as well. It's just because Apple's like pioneering like a new kind of architecture. All the software developers take a little bit of time to catching up with it. So eventually it will go there. It will be a little bit of future-proofing yourself, but who knows how long all these programs will take to make it work.
Yeah. So just keep an eye on that, guys. All right, Lori. I guess do you have to run now?
No, I mean we could take a few questions if there is any. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll take a couple of questions. Let me just check in the chat, guys. Let me know, guys, if you guys have any other questions. Now's the moment to ask. We got a couple more minutes here, so I'll just check the chat for any last questions. Acid Mall asks, aren't the new chips supposed to be pretty competitive price against performance?
I think he means Apple chips, right?
Hard to say. I don't know.
I think like Apple new chips, which are the M1 silicon chips, those are very, very competitive, especially in the laptop like world. Like all the laptops from AMD and Intel now, that's like the standard to beat Apple. Usually like the Intel ones were better than anything else, but now that's the one.
Okay. What RAID profile is best? I think RAID relates to the hard drive.
Yes, it's like a storage option system. Random access. Sorry. RAID is redundant array of independent disks. That's what it means. But depends what you want and how many hard drives you have. If you have 4 hard drives, I would recommend RAID 5. If you have 2, I'd recommend RAID 1. So you basically get a backup of 1. If you want the speed of both, then go for RAID 0 on 2 of them. But if you want a little bit of like it's not a backup, it's basically redundancy, creating like 1 disk of redundancy. If you have RAID 5, what that means is you get 3 hard drive or SSD amount of capacity, and any one of those hard drives or SSDs can fail, and then you can just literally swap it up and you don't lose any data. So if you have a NAS or something like that, I'm running RAID 5, and that's like what I like that.
Okay, the next question, this one's more for me, I think. So how about GPU and using, I believe, Ableton push? Will GPU optimize the push speed? I actually don't know the answer to that question. I don't know how your GPU would improve the performance of the Push 2, which is an external MIDI controller. From what I understand, there is no relation, but I could be wrong. It seems that I've never heard of that before. Here's another question. So I know we talked about PSUs already. I got a 750 watt Corsair currently, but it's 5 years old. Is it worth replacing to prevent failure?
Honestly, if you want to save money, I wouldn't. If it's 80 plus and you've got all the plugs that work with like your CPU, for example, and motherboard and all the things, just don't replace it. Just run it to the ground.
Okay. How about Thunderbolt with an AMD computer? I'd like to put my PC outside my room and run a Thunderbolt cable to a hub at my desk for I/O. Any suggestions? So he's wondering, I guess, how would he do that?
Yeah. So just so you know, Thunderbolt cable can only be a certain length. So make sure that like the length of running that cable will actually be there. So as you can see, like online, trying to find very long Thunderbolt cables is not possible because you're going to lose it. It just can't run it. You're going to need like another kind of hub or duct that will enhance the signal of this because it loses the signal after a certain length. Thunderbolt on AMD, you can get that. I would recommend only 2 motherboards that actually work with Thunderbolt on AMD. One of them I showed you, which is Gigabyte B550 Vision DP, which has a Thunderbolt 3 on it, and that for sure works because Thunderbolt on AMD can be a little bit funny. And then the second motherboard I would recommend is Asus ProArt B550 Creator motherboard, and those 2 motherboards will have like a very solid performance of the Thunderbolt. So yeah, you could completely do that, but just make sure that it's not too far away because otherwise it won't work.
Nice. All right. I think that's all the questions we have so far. I'm just gonna double check. I think we had a couple questions from the Instagram. Let me just pull that up, see if there's anything relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there was a question about best way to get low CPU usage. Any tips around that?
Yeah. So basically, what you can do in order to get low CPU usage is uninstall all the crap from all your PC. If you don't need that program, uninstall it. Another thing is if you're on the PC, I wish I could show you here. I can't really, but go on the task manager. You can see that startup, there might be a lot of things that just start automatically from when you start up. Get rid of them or disable them. Uninstall all the rubbish that you have. Sometimes Windows comes with stuff as well, like solitaire and stuff. Get rid of it. Xbox Live, get rid of it. Like all the stuff, get rid of it. Second thing is high CPU usage is usually either your CPU starts to get old and it can't keep up with all the programs it's running. So maybe worth upgrading. I know it's not like a good suggestion, but it most likely needs an upgrade sometime soon. Unless you're running very powerful CPU, then it could be that. Also make sure everything is like up to date in terms of drivers, BIOS, Windows, like the golden trio.
All right. One final question. So we understand that CPU and RAM is important, but past that point, what else should I improve on? Is it a storage quality or motherboard if I want to improve the performance?
Yeah. Motherboards, different motherboards give you 0 performance improvements. Motherboards only give you a more connectivity on this. Some motherboards have like a faster SSD like speed option, but all the ones that I recommended can run the fastest SSDs you possibly can, so you don't need to worry about that. But in terms of the speed, motherboards don't give you extra speeds. What I would focus on is the storage system. Make sure you get like your programs, project, cache, and archive system going on. That will speed up your workflow.
Awesome. All right. So I think that's all the questions we're going to answer for today. So I just want to thank everyone that asked the question today. And thanks for participating in our stream today. And just want to thank you, Lori, for doing such an in-depth run through of all the different components you can invest in if you are looking into building a PC for your next music project. So make sure to follow Lori or Lori's channel, Tech Notice. All his links are down in the description below. And if you want more information about the different components, remember that he's left links down in the description below so you can read up on it and choose well. Just remember, if you're selecting AMD, make sure you're selecting AMD compatible motherboard and other components. Likewise for Intel. Other than that, is there anything else you want to say, Lori?
I think that's pretty much all. If I just want to say that right now there could be a little bit of shortage of like just PC components in the world. So if you're not necessarily desperate for PC parts right now, or you're thinking about a build, just to look out for some deals. For example, Amazon, I think should be worldwide. Like a little deal is coming out in a few days, so I'll probably make a video about motherboard components that will be on sale on Amazon places in a few days' time. So if you want to tune into that, you can check that out. But like, don't necessarily buy that unless just wait for deals, just because there isn't that many components available, and because of the shortage of just PC chips, you if you can wait. If you can't, just go for it.
Yeah.
That's all.
And also, if you guys are looking to build a PC and you don't know how to build one, Lori actually has some great videos. He's done some live streams on his channel where he goes step by step on how to build your PC once you have all the components. So again, make sure to check his channel, check out his videos. He's got an awesome channel and lots of great content.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Like there's a few like an hour long plus videos where you like we're going so slow. So anybody, if you's like never build a PC before, I've tried to make it so that you literally can build it on your kitchen worktop, no problem.
Awesome. Well, just want to thank you again, Lori, for giving us your time and effort in educating my audience about all the different components of different things you can get for PC or computer these days for music producers. And I hope everyone out there tuned in that you found this entertaining and educational. And make sure you like the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Subscribe to Lori Technotis channel. Other than that, just thank you all for watching, and we'll see you at the next show. Bye.
Bye.